All right. This is The Earth and Its Peoples by Richard Bulliet. Chapter 18, The Diversity of American Colonial Societies, 1530 to 1770. We've got section 1, the Columbian Exchange. So the Columbian Exchange is a very important topic when it comes to world history. The word Columbian comes from the voyage of Christopher Columbus, who in 1492 made the first voyage from the Old World. The Old World is, let's go ahead and write this out, Asia, Africa, and Europe. The New World consists of North and South America. And what his voyage really signaled in 1492 was the beginning of the end of isolation between these two land masses or set of continents. Following Christopher Columbus's voyage, many other people from the Old World made the trip to the New World. In addition to the people who went from Old World to New World, there was also a transfer of biology, and that really is what the Columbian Exchange refers to. So it is the biological exchange between New and Old World after 1492. Right, that is the standard textbook definition of what the Columbian Exchange is. So we'd already mentioned a little bit about how different civilizations and societies developed in both the Old World and the New, but it was also true that different animals inhabited both the Old World and New. Different plants inhabited these two continents, different diseases. So in addition to the people being isolated for 10,000 years, animals had been isolated, plants had been isolated, diseases had been isolated. And so when these two land masses come into contact with one another, it is the exchange of all of these things, namely animals, plants, and diseases, that marks what the Columbian Exchange is. One of the most significant things, or one of the most consequential parts of this exchange, was disease. And for the most part, disease was it was a one-way transfer, in that disease from the Old World traveled to the New World. And the impact on it was dramatic demographic changes. And what we mean by demographics is a fancy word for population. Because the New World population, or the Native American population, remained isolated from these diseases for more than 10,000 years, those people lacked the immunity to these diseases like smallpox and malaria. The way that the human immune system works is that you can only build up an immunity to disease if you're exposed to it. And so 10,000 years of isolation left the New World population without the proper immunities. And so when these diseases traveled to the New World, and they traveled via people and the animals in which they were carried on, it led to incredible death rates, right? I don't know why it says raiders, but incredible death rates. In the New World, it is estimated that death rates could be as high as 75% in certain areas. They could be as high as 50% in other areas. And this led to, especially among what we might call Native American or Native societies, this was incredibly harmful, right? Not just the sheer number of people who died from disease, which is, consequential within itself, but the way that they impacted entire societies, entire economies, entire cultures. And like we had mentioned in the previous chapter, this was one of the main reasons to why the Spanish were successful in their conquest over New World peoples, the way that disease had such a dramatic or devastating impact. On the other hand, there was also other exchanges that are noteworthy, that of plants and animals. a couple of important crops and animals to go between Old World and New. The first one included sugar. This was from the Old World. Travel to the New. Sugar had never been in North and South America before Christopher Columbus. And the reason why sugar is so significant is really how it's tied to the economy and how it becomes a cash crop, and the way that it also brings African slavery to the New World. It is specifically this term, we use this term plantation. A plantation is sort of a way to set up how you grow crops for purely export. And because the Portuguese started to grow sugar and use African slavery to do that in places like the northern Africa and some of the islands in the Atlantic, when sugar was brought to the Old World, the labor system was also brought with it. Another very significant crop is that of the potato. This one was from the New World, right? So this existed in the Americas, and this was brought to the Old. And what the potato did, because it's somewhat of a miracle crop, very easy to grow, very nutritious, has kind of all the nutritional info that you really, or that societies need, it led to tremendous population growth. So population growth, especially in the Old World, grew as a result of the potato. Typical crops in the Old World included things like wheat and rice, which are great crops in themselves, but the potato could also supplement that. So in Old World societies, Europe, Asia, and Africa, wheat was still grown, but potatoes were used to supplement that, and because there was more food, health was better, and because of that, there were more people who were born, so population growth on the old side of the world. So in terms of just demographics, if we look at kind of the grand scheme of things in the Old World, because of new crops like the potato, the population of the Old World is going up. However, in the New World, because of diseases, the population is going down. And when we look at global migration patterns, for the most part, it remains one of people going from the Old World to the New, right? There were more people here, there was less people here, more land, more resources, and that's more or less the trajectory of global migration going all the way back to the 1500s. A couple of other important Colombian Exchange items included animals, specifically domesticated animals, horses, cattle, and pigs. These all came from Old World to the New. Horses, cattle, and pigs had both a positive and negative impact on American or New World societies. The negative impact was the environmental destruction. A lot of these animals had no natural predators and could therefore really either wipe out what native animal species had existed there or wipe out a lot of the plant life. It's also true that many of these animals also had diseases on them, and disease, as much as it killed people, could also kill animals. So it was a very disturbing sort of biological disruption that occurred as a result of it. However, these animals also could provide some positive characteristics. So, for example, a lot of Native American societies adopted these animals, horses, cattle, and pigs. Again, these animals did not exist. They were not in the New World prior to Columbus. And so even though these animals unleashed a lot of environmental damage, they could also be used by native societies in a way to improve their life, whereas that hadn't existed prior to the Columbian Exchange.